Greetings to Workforce Education 538. As promised, this is the video that deals with individual assignments in Workforce Education 538 for this semester. Two things that I want to talk with you about. I think it's critically important to show you the text that is going to be important for you to use. This is the APA 6th edition writing manual. This is the actual publication manual of the American Psychological Association. It's the 6th edition, and it's the manual that will provide you with an overview, an outline, a format, and a framework for manuscript and paper submission and development, leading to formatting, leading to structure, leading to headings and subheadings, working with citations, and also working with references as direct sources for primary research sources in your papers. Other thing that I want to point to, and this is the Canvas website for Workforce Education 538, and that is the requirements associated with the assignments. One of the things that's going to be absolutely essential is that you understand that we use Turnitin as the vehicle to submit papers. This is an academic integrity tool that is designed to look at issues of plagiarism with students' papers. So please make sure in the APA manual that you understand the issues of plagiarism, the fact that you cannot take others' ideas, thoughts, or even written word and call them your own unless you paraphrase them and provide a citation, or if you're quoting directly, you need to be doing so such that you have direct quotations and following the APA format for that. But this is just a reminder that with all assignments, we need to have you submit only the final assignment once to Turnitin, which will be used for grading purposes. Having said that, let's get started in taking a look at these specific assignments so that we have an understanding of what they are and what they look like. Okay, assignment. This is to begin with assignment 1 in Workforce Ed 538. This is an assignment that is due the beginning of the semester. The assignment due dates are going to be posted on every assignment sheet. The assignment sheet provides you with an overview of the assignment and then the assignment tasks and the requirements. And what I want to do is provide you with an overview of these assignments, not an exhaustive review of the assignments. You need to review the assignment sheets. If you have questions, you need to be in touch with me, and we can arrange for either email follow-up, or we can arrange for a phone conversation or a Zoom conference. Please contact me at mwh10@psu.edu. At any rate, this first assignment deals with the LEA, Local Educational Agency, or the CTE, organizational structure, and the HR function review and analysis paper, and also a Zoom presentation. Obviously, the Pennsylvania General Assembly and PA School Code, in conjunction with the Department of Education, require that there's a school organization administrative entity for all schools within the Commonwealth. This is also reiterated in the Perkins Act of 2006 and the newly reauthorized 2018 Perkins 5. This is also in conjunction with PDE's Bureau of Career and Technical Education in relationship to the fact that there is a clear line of authority delineated to school entities that are providing career and technical education to school students at the secondary level. The issue with this is that this is outlined in Pennsylvania's Department of Education and their review of CTE programs as outlined in Title 22, Educational Chapter 339 of Vocational Education. This particular assignment, I'm interested in having all candidates review the structure of what is happening with administrative organization and who is responsible for what, including the HR function. This should be done in a way that it includes CTE organizational structure, a chart that delineates responsibilities, roles, and tasks. This includes the administrator's roles and the responsibility for those functions within the school organization. Beyond that, I'm interested in having you take a look at the human resources function. The HR function should include issues of staffing related to school planning for personnel hire and personnel replacement, personnel growth in relationship to new programs and design. It should include new teacher induction programs. It should also include mentoring programs, and this can be mentoring programs that are an extension beyond the Act 48 requirements for professional development here in Pennsylvania. Also, this talks about staff development, professional development activities, performance evaluation, collective bargaining, and the ethical and legal policy and practice implications dealing with the organizational chart. The interesting piece here is I would like to have candidates do a written narrative. I do not want this in bullet points. I do not want this in talking points. I do not want this in just an organizational chart itemization. I'd like to have a comprehensive narrative that deals with the essence of the organization and the lines of authority and the function of HR within the CTE or CTC school district that you're working in. So that then needs to have a discussion within your paper of what delineates what roles, what responsibilities, who was responsible for what, and then specifically speak to the issues of the HR function within the program. Candidates should use the text. You should also use the professional standards for educational leadership and the PDE framework for leadership standards for CTE administrators to support the kinds of administrative activities, the administrative function, and the administrative role that you've found and you've explored and you've articulated. The key with this is please give me what you have and then fill in the gaps in relationship to what is not there and what you anticipate is needed. This is a structural review and an analysis, and the paper should be anywhere between 8 and 10 pages in length, with an additional reference page as needed, and also following the APA format. This is a structured review, and it is the due date that is listed unless you work with me prior to the due date and ask for an extension. And again, need to reiterate that extensions are only going to be given where there are extenuating circumstances that meet the university's guidelines. And also, as stated before in the class syllabus, if assignments are late, they will be penalized according to the syllabus. This is the scoring rubric that is aligned with this program assignment for Workforce Ed 538, and I would encourage you to please review this and see how you earn points on this particular assignment. This is kind of an overview, as I said, for assignment number 1, which is the LEA CTC Organizational Structure and HR Function Review and Analysis paper. Candidates also will present their paper and their findings during class. From there, we move on to assignment number 2. And assignment number 2 deals with hiring policy and hiring practices. And again, it will take me just a moment to open this so that folks can see it. Also, it's an overview, and so this does not go into significant detail. It hits the highlights in relationship to this assignment. This assignment is due in early October, and the assignment includes posting an executive summary to Canvas, just like the executive summary in all of these. This deals with hiring practices and policy compliance. It's a review and an analysis, and also has a Zoom presentation that is included. Candidates are to review the staffing needs, the hiring practices, and the policies in their CTE setting. This includes the HR function of determining staffing needs with HR plans to project retirements, to project replacements, to project reassignments, and to project staff attrition and/or staff resignations. This includes all personnel administration dealing with staffing patterns and hiring, replacing, and making sure that there's full staffing for all program services that are available within the CTE or the CEC. This includes administrative roles, this includes faculty and teaching roles, and this includes classified staff positions within the organization. What I'm asking you to do is to review the most recent hires for A, administrator, B, teacher, C, classified staff, which would be secretarial, maintenance, professional support within your CTE setting. Candidates are to work with their director and also their HRD manager to discuss the review of hiring processes, hiring practices. How are candidates solicited? How are jobs advertised? How are interviews scheduled? How are candidates selected? How is the process of induction? All of those things fall in line. These need to also include in your review the statutory framework of PA codes, of PDE guidance documents, and also your school setting staffing and hiring policy and procedures, along with any other state mandated or federal mandated regulations as appropriate. I've listed some statutory policies here that should be used and reviewed, and the actual assignment tasks for assignment number 2 in Workforce Ed 538 include a review and a description of these hiring policies and practices. Please review and have at least one job description and advertisement announcement associated with a recent hire for each of the 3 personnel areas: administrative, instructor teaching, classified personnel. The reviews should include, but they aren't limited to, they can be more extensive than just the job description and the requirements, credentials, and responsibility, the staffing needs, projected and/or plans, recruitment, advertisement of the position and the announcement, application process and the review of the application process, the selection for candidates to interview, the selection for candidates to be offered the position, the assignment and the placement of the new hire, and then the HR function in the hiring process. This includes legal, ethical, and best practices with HRD compliance. What I'm interested in is that as you review the hiring policies and practices and the compliance issues, this is written in a narrative format. This is not written as bullet points. This is not listed as an HR policy itemization or listing. This is a comprehensive narrative of the issues that are occurring within your CTE setting. This should be discussed with your CTE director and or your HR manager associated with these activities. The assignment needs to be a review of all of these areas. It needs to include administrative, teaching, instruction, and classified staff. It also needs to make sure that there is a position description, and in doing so, please make sure that no candidate or applicant personal information, background information is included. This is an overview of how these jobs were advertised and the process that occurred in selection and actually induction around these issues. The other thing that I think is important is that in your review, item number 4 takes a look at, are there any areas of need as identified in your review and your analysis? Please be specific, providing a clear rationale with the need within your school organization, and then develop a specific recommendation or recommendations to address this that could be used in HRD principles. The specifics for recommendations must include what's the specific HR hiring process or practice that you've identified that potentially needs improvement. It may be your selection criteria. Your selection criteria needs to be more specific. It needs to follow a structure. It needs to have a rating scale. It needs to have a reporting out. It needs to have a voting sequence, and it needs to have a consensus in order to move forward with the hiring process. It could be any other area that you see as a need identified as an area for improvement in your review. In this particular case, then you need to take a look at the HR function and provide a specific series of recommendations in application. The recommendations should include specific methods or means to improve the process, HR goals and the anticipated outcome, and then are there any statutory rules, acts, guidance elements, regulations that you would align with this so that best practices are perceived. Also in this, you need to write a concluding summary statement. This should address how this practice can support best practices in personnel and HR services in connection with key concepts for this course. It also should include a linkage back with the associated appropriate PDE framework or PIL framework for CTE directors, and then the standards that are associated with the national leaders standards as well. Which ones are important? This compliance review should be anywhere between 12 and 15 pages with an additional reference page as needed for this particular assignment. Again, following the issues of assignments are due on due dates unless there are extenuating circumstances that would require an extension, and late assignments will be penalized. This is the scoring rubric that is associated with this particular assignment, and the importance is making sure that you have read the assignment sheet, understand what you are doing, and then understand how you earn the points in relationship to assignment number 2. Moving on to assignment number 3. It's going to be important that we take a look at assignment number 3. Same game plan. Basically, let me move this out and make this more readable and user-friendly. Again, an overview of this particular information. Assignment number 3 is due at the end of October. In this particular assignment, you are going to take a look at the induction and the mentoring program associated with staff and professional development. This links back to staff evaluation. It links back to teacher evaluation in relationship to how we work with new people in schools. The background information here speaks to obviously Carl D. Perkins and the reauthorization of 2018 framed CTE school improvement efforts. Federal legislation under ESSA, and also the Pennsylvania Department of Education requires school improvement plans. Professional development, school improvement efforts are linked actively to PA Act 82, which is educator effectiveness. This also ties back specifically to information that comes from our textbook, and that's delineated here in this particular assignment with a context clue for you. What I'm asking candidates to do in this review is to research and prepare a comprehensive written report that describes the current practices used in CTE settings associated with A, new teacher induction programs, B, educator mentoring programs, C, professional personal performance evaluation, teacher evaluation policy and practice, and associated staff or professional development planning and delivery, both at the individual and school-wide level. The interest here is to understand and complete the circle that hiring new faculty, mentoring senior faculty, providing professional development in the form of teacher, professional, and staff, professional development, planning and delivery both to the individual and school-wide is an emphasis area that should be tied to performance evaluation, teacher evaluation, and needs for growth within the CTE setting, school-wide and individually. This is a comprehensive action plan, if you will, in narrative that takes a look at school improvement efforts at the CTC. Candidates will need to work with their CTE director, the HR manager, or other appropriate personnel in their setting to take a look at this assignment and to meet the needs and gain the information from assignment element number 1. This also should include taking a look at the issues of staff development, teacher effectiveness, and program planning, and there are a variety of statutes and regulations that can be and should be part of this assignment. Candidates will need to A, provide an analysis of each area and each element in this assignment for number 1. These are separate subsection analyses for each of those in the 4 areas identified in assignment number 1. Address the interconnectedness between these elements, because there is a connect the dots between staff development, professional development, looking at mentoring programs, looking at induction programs, and school improvement efforts that are actually part and parcel of school improvement programming design. The specifics then need to focus on where are there potential areas of need or potential areas of improvement. This would include methods and or means to improve the process. So for example, if professional development is left up to Act 48 and the individual, and there's no school-wide professional development, there may be an issue in taking a look at the need for comprehensive school-wide professional development that deal with curricula areas or HR areas of importance. Who are the stakeholders that would be involved in that improvement? What is the CTE school improvement goal and the anticipated outcomes? And then what are the HR or personnel administrative policy changes that would need to occur to implement those recommendations? That's outlined in section number 3 of this particular assignment. Then what I need to have you do is basically in section number 4 is take a look at how these are connected with key aspects of the content that we're presenting in Workforce Education 583 from the textbook perspective, from the legal perspectives as far as statutory framework, and then how do these associate with PDE's Framework for Leadership 2014, and also the Educational Leaders Standards of 2015. Associate this back to specific standards and how they tie in. This particular assignment should be anywhere between 10 and 15 pages in length with an additional reference page as needed, following APA criteria. And as with other assignments, it's due on the date that it's due unless there are extenuating circumstances that are improved by your instructor and meet university policy. And late assignments will be penalized. Again, here it will be important to take a look at the scoring rubric for this particular assignment and understand how you earn points in relationship to the work that's identified above. And then just make sure that this aligns with the syllabus and also the grading policies with Turnitin and other things. So this is assignment number 3. The 4th assignment in this particular course is going to be a fairly comprehensive assignment. It's a lengthy assignment, and it deals with a comparing and a contrasting, if you will, of the elements that are associated with taking a look at collective bargaining and collective bargaining units. The issue with the 4th assignment is the due date is in late November, and you will actually have a presentation the last week of class, in this case the beginning of December, and you can see the timelines on those specific assignment sheets. In this particular case, what I'm asking you to do is take a look at the governing factors that have an overview in taking a look at labor relations, collective bargaining, negotiations, contracts, federal and state legal frameworks, and the ethical best practices of taking a look at collective bargaining and the processes involved with collective bargaining. Personnel administration, HR planning, and labor relations for school leaders are discussed at length in our textbooks for both 538 personnel administration and HR services and workforce education. In this particular assignment, what I'm anxious to have you do is look at the 3 key collective bargaining units. Typically, there is an administrative bargaining unit, or this is done independently with a single administrator with the JOC or with the school board. There are teacher bargaining units, teacher unit agreements, and teacher contracting agreements, and then there are classified personnel bargaining units and bargaining agreements that typically reside in CTE settings or in school districts. Candidates will develop a comparative analysis contrasting the provisions, the negotiations process, collective bargaining practices, and the linkages with legal and professional framework for these HR functions associated with collective bargaining. I will provide a cross-articulated list for candidates to look at, but there are a variety of resources that I suggest you review as part of this assignment. There are significant legal frameworks that are involved in the scope of this assignment, and I've suggested particular sections for you to take a look at here to review. I would also suggest that you speak with your CTE director and also your HR personnel manager or other appropriate member within your CTE organization on this assignment. The assignment tasks basically your candidates are to write a collective bargaining units assessment and an overall comprehensive review for administrators, for teaching staff, and for classified personnel. They basically are to look at contract provisions, negotiation processes and procedures, collective bargaining practices for those 3 units. In that review, I would suggest again that you have this discussion with your CTE director, with your HR manager, with your CTE personnel, or other associated people that are part of collective bargaining and contract negotiations. Do a comparative analysis, and this is a comparing and contrasting of these 3 bargaining units as outlined in number 1. And again, as I've said, I will provide you with a Excel sheet that will help you with this comparative analysis just from an organizational perspective. Use supporting concepts that come from our resources, text materials and other related resources, and reading informations that are part of our text, part of our Canvas course site, part of the websites that I provided, part of the statutory framework that is in your Canvas site under files, and or other e-readings or resources that are available. Issue here is to make sure that your collective bargaining papers typically are going to be between 15 to possibly 20 pages in length with an additional reference page and resources that are aligned here. I suggest the following components that will help you with this particular paper. Actual product is well developed and comprehensive, looking at these units. It will provide an overview of class materials. It will cross-articulate with the textbooks that we have used in the course and also the PDE PIL Framework for Leadership 2014 and the Professional Standards for Educational Leaders 2015 document on educational leadership standards. Present a paper and also a PowerPoint that discusses this information, and then the PowerPoints will be posted to Canvas for class members to review. In taking a look at the paper, 100 points, introduction, background, setting, collective bargaining unit should be the beginning, identifying the process used to do the research and investigate this information, a synthesis of the statutory and PDE frameworks for this assignment, a summary of the collective bargaining units to include that for administrators, that for teachers, that for classified personnel. This would be to take a look also at each one of these areas where they're taking a look at contract provisions, negotiation processes, collective bargaining practices, linkages with legal and professional best practices, and then taking a look at administrative personnel linkages. Understanding that we are going to tie those to the professional standards, both for PDE and also for NPBEA. Have a conclusion section on how your findings will impact your view of personnel, administration, and HR resource services within CTE. Candidates should also make sure that they're able to apply these skills in their quest for administrative leadership in workforce education, and then accurately reflect all APA writing conventions with the APA publication manual. The presentation should be a comprehensive overview of PowerPoints associated with the background from the text, the findings that you had, the comparative analysis, and then the support design with personnel and HR function within CTE leadership. be prepared to enter into an active discussion Q&A with class members on this assignment. Collective bargaining, again, 15 to 20 pages. This is also following APA writing conventions with an additional page or two as needed for appropriate reference listing. Collective bargaining papers are due when the due date is listed in this thing, unless there are extenuating circumstances that are approved by your instructor prior to the assignment due date, and then late assignments are penalized. And then please look at the scoring rubric for the 100 points related to the actual paper and the writing process pieces, and then also the 50 points that are assigned for the PowerPoint presentation that are due with assignment number 4. Those include the major assignments in this particular course. There is one other set of assignments that are due, that are going to be important in this particular class, and it will take me just a moment to take a look at this. I want to pull this up and use the actual materials here to show you the coursework. And the materials here to show the coursework are pretty straightforward. I'm asking you to do discussion board posts that will be posted on Canvas, and there are 4 specific discussion board posts with prompts that are 25 points each. The intention of this particular discussion point series in assignment number 5 is to provide candidates with an opportunity to interact with one another and to explain and explore their information around these specific prompts that are provided. These discussion prompts should be no more than 2 pages in length. They are to be provided and posted on Canvas. They are due when the due date occurs. They are individual assignments that are written in APA 6th edition format. Again, late assignments are basically those that are going to be associated with this, and the discussion prompts do need to be turned in to turn it in, and there is the actual work that is associated with the discussion prompt information. There are 4 discussion prompts, and again, I want to just hit the highlights with these. In each discussion prompt, what you will have is background information that will talk about the prompt. It will then ask you specifically to respond to what are the critical elements and the lines of authority that are associated with your CTE, CTC organizational structure, that organizational administrative chart. And how do these relate to the HR function and services? Need to provide this along with information and discuss how that works in your particular CTE center as a 2-page analysis. Then that's the prompt that's posted. And then the second part of the assignment is for your consideration. Do you see that there are significant aspects of CTE organizational structure at the local level regarding personnel services and the HR function in workforce education, and why? And then why is this information and this structure important for personnel administration and HR in CTE settings, and provide specific examples. In the second part of these assessments, what you do is you post your information and then you enter into a discussion around some of these points to consider, and you post those in relationship to others' discussion posts. This is the first one, and the first one basically deals with the issues of CTE organizational structure and flow chart specifically. The second post deals with statutory framework and personnel services. And again, what I do here is there's a due date, 25 points, I provide you with some information, and then I basically ask which do you think are the most important of the acts or of the particular elements or the particular titles that we function under in relationship to CTE administration as it relates to school personnel. There are a variety of different acts that are out there. This is affording you the opportunity to look at those various acts, and they can be voluminous. There are several of them. And then in your opinion, which ones do you think is the most important and why? And then from that perspective, you identify the one that you think is the most important, and then in no more than 2 pages, you discuss why you think it's important, and you would post that to Canvas. You'd also submit that to Turnitin, and then in the exchange that happens amongst class members, the discussion points for consideration for engagement deal with why is this important in relationship to statutory framework, policy consideration, and best practices, and then what are the essential needs to know would guide that series of exchange and discussion. The third post deals with strikes, grievances, and arbitrations, and then particularly the background in legal and ethical best practices. And again, the textbooks provide us with significant background and significant information on how grievances and strikes and arbitration is handled in public schools in the state of Pennsylvania, and then what are the ethical best practices. From here, what I'm asking you to do is use the textbook, use the statutory and legal frameworks to identify the essential needs to know around grievances, around strikes, around arbitration agreements that are need to know. Again, this is posted to Canvas, shouldn't be more than 2 pages. It's posted to Turnitin, and there are some discussion elements for engagement. This is the interaction on the discussion board between class members, basically the statutory framework, legal best practices, and then the leadership and management skills that are associated with that. Concerning strikes, concerning grievances, and concerning arbitration. These can be very challenging and very stressful experiences for the school administrator, particularly in workforce education and development. So what are the important needs to know, and then the frameworks that support that, and then what are potentially best practices that can support school personnel in CTE settings. And again, here an opportunity to turn this in to Turnitin. Also post this on the Canvas site, and then become engaged in interaction with class members on that third discussion post, which is due the end of October. The fourth discussion post is the one that's due at the end of the semester. And the fourth discussion post doesn't necessarily have an interaction component. It certainly can. But my interest here is to have you do a reflection and take a look at personnel administration in practice. And what I do is I provide you with some information, some background that kind of highlights the course, and I ask you 2 key questions, and I'm providing you with the opportunity to review and respond in no more than 4 pages in length. So you have a little bit more writing room here. I welcome interaction amongst class members on this, but I'm really interested in having you do a distillation of reflective analysis in how this particular course and this particular information is going to help you in relationship to your work in personnel administration and HR services as a CTE administrator. Are the assignments that make up the core course content in Workforce Education 538. Assignments 1, 2, 3, and 4 are comprehensive major assignments. Assignment number 5 is a series of 4 discussion board posts as outlined in the discussion board prompts. This information is found on the Canvas website. It's found in the files folder, which deals with assignments. It's also found under the assignments tab on the Canvas website, and it's also found in relationship to each of the individual modules that align with the Workforce Ed 538 schedule and associated assignments and timelines when they are due, found on the course syllabus. This ends the overview of the assignments in Workforce Ed 538. Again, provided an overview and some talking points for each of these assignments. As you review, my contact information is mwh10@psu.edu. I'm happy to work with you to make these assignments successful and this course interaction for you a successful opportunity in learning. Thank you very much.